how the wind roared today. Multiple tornadoes sweeping across Oklahoma, leaving major damage in their wake and at least one fatality. A state of emergency has been declared for 16 counties. This tornado you're seeing right here eventually left behind this devastation in Bethel Acres, west of Shawnee. News 9 has been on the air all afternoon and evening, and tonight we have team coverage from our storm trackers and reporters. They're in the worst hit areas with live reports.
And we also have pictures and videos sent in from our News 9 viewers who really helped keep us informed about what was going on where they live. But we want to begin tonight with Chief Meteorologist our meteorologist Nick Bender. I gave you a raise there, Nick.
We'll talk to Gary about that tomorrow. It has just been a really busy day across the entire state, and these guys have been incredibly hardworking. This is some of the fleet of storm trackers that we have out in the field. David Payne, Alan Brosey, Val Castor, Amy Castor, Jim Garner's out over there. A lot of really great video, a lot of really compelling stories. We're going to start off, pretty much we all started off in Edmond, in Oklahoma County with the tornado earlier this afternoon. Talk about that.
Well, you know, the first big storm, developed eastern Canadian County, western Oklahoma County, and we knew we were in trouble. It took off, and it was slow to go at the beginning, but man, when it ramped up, this is at 2nd Street and Coltrane. Let me back up here. That's at 15th Street. You were north of me at 2nd Street. This is at 15th Streat and Coltrane there. And again, there's the cone hanging down, tornado on the ground there, crossing Coltrane just south of 15th Street, headed towards I-35. And again, this tornado began about a mile west of there. There's the cone hanging down. The tornado is on the ground there with debris in the air going through some of the neighborhoods. And now watch this. This is at I-35 and 15th Street. It's over that Mercy Hospital, that medical complex. They're just about finished. But look at this, folks. Look at the debris in the air, and that is from my tracking unit, from my storm tracking car, looking off to the southwest. Now watch it come through these trees. There's a service road looking southbound, and look at the tornado crossing I-35 at 2nd Street and 15th. How about that? And there it is at 15th Street and I-35, excuse me. It crosses I-35, heads towards Arcadia Lake. It puts down multiple tornadoes, some smaller tornadoes, pretty close to 2nd Street, north of 2nd Street. Heads towards Pops. We all know where Pops is in Arcadia. It goes just south of Pops. And again, this tornado was putting on an amazing show with some larger, even some smaller tornadoes. But that was the amazing tornado that was moving through the Edmond area, again, crossing I-35. And now this is the Kearney tornado. And this is the one that was really ramped up just northwest of Luther. And folks, that's going to be a quarter to half mile wide, EF3, maybe an EF4. And look how fast that is. Remember, that's about a quarter to half mile wide at the base. And look how fast the motion is on the left side. Look how violent. You see little waves of motion lifting up in that, and basically those are vortices rotating around, so it looks like it's actually lifting, but those are vortices rotating around that one big cone.
It's an explosive environment today for supercells. We've been talking about it for days, that today was going to be the big risk day. That storm went on into Lincoln County, and it got huge. You were north of the storm up in Guthrie and came down on the north side of it through the core, and it was just right outside your window, right there. Huge tornado.
177 towards Kearney. And we stopped in downtown Kearney, and we could see the tornado coming from the southeast or southwest. Right there, it's crossing 177 in Kearney itself, taking out homes. It was very, very tough to report that, as you can see the debris from the homes right there. It's still in Kearney right there. It's destroyed over a dozen homes right there in that one spot. Very tough tornado, very tough day for these folks in Oklahoma. Multiple vortices. You can see the multiple vortices spin around the bottom of that. Yeah, very dangerous storm. It really was.
Well, now you're on the west side there, looking off to the east, as it looks like it's moving away from me. Now, where's that from?
Now, that is the Shawnee storm. I'm on 177 again. It's crossing. That is right there at I-40 and 177 as it's destroying those semis and flipping all the cars off of I-40 itself. We rolled up within 300-400 yards of that. That was a very, very strong, devastating storm as it went into the residences there.
And you really needed to be just in the right spot at the right points of this storm, because it was rain-wrapped, and if you were on the south side, you wouldn't be able to see it.
Right, you couldn't see it. But the big hail was falling, and I think that's Val's shot, is it not?
And then Val was out there, too, today with the same storms, and he had something. You were pretty much paired up with David throughout much of the day, but just a different vantage point.
Right, and what you're looking at right here, this is later on when the storm was up, I guess, northeast of Luther and north of the Wellston area, before it went into Kearney. That's the same exact tornado that went into Kearney. And it was growing. At this point, I was on the phone with Gary saying, Gary, you know, this thing is getting bigger. And I think David alluded to this too when we were talking. When this thing first formed, and it was straight, we watched it straight north of Luther, about probably 2.5 to 3 miles. You know, it formed, and we knew this one was going to be bigger than the Edmund tornado, right? Because, you know, when you see it form like that, when you see the funnel come down and you got that huge rotation in the clouds above it like a lip coming around, you know it's getting ready to be a big tornado. We've seen a lot of those.
And the feeder bands going into it were so much lower and just so much stronger from the northeast, from the southeast, and it was just screaming into it. It looked a lot different. It was a totally different animal, like you said, compared to the Edmund storm. But same storm, just in a different environment.
Yeah, here's some more video right here, and this is just a little bit further down the line. This is right before it goes into Kearney. We were watching here, and we drove. We were actually able to drive right up within about 200 yards of this tornado. And I got to tell you, the motion on this storm was violent. I mean, that right there, that's probably F4. I would say intensity right there. That is the kind of storm where we saw what it did in Kearney.
There was F3 plus damage in Kearney. Multiple homes just roofs off, walls caved in, and lots and lots of damage.
Exactly. Yeah, and it just got bigger after that.
It was a day, unfortunately, that we were talking about for quite a few days. And, of course, the damage with some of these tornadoes just extensive, easily EF3, possibly even EF4 damage. And these guys just did a fantastic job of getting the warnings out, of being in the right place at the right time ahead of these storms to get those warnings out to the public. And we may see you a lot tomorrow as well, because we do have a big risk of severe weather tomorrow across the state. We'll talk more about that in more detail coming up here in just a few minutes.
Today. Let's take a look at some of his video from Sky News 9 HD, if we can. Incredible video from up around Kearney, but this is the video of the tornado, I think, down by, yes, it is, down by Lake Thunderbird.
Right.
And Jim was the only one on this tornado and got it just as it touched down on Lake Thunderbird. That's as it's moving across the east side of the lake, north and east side of the lake, over in the Little Axe area.
Right.
Jim, talk us through this tornado and what you were seeing as you were following this.
Well, you know, first we just got the wall cloud and everything we knew, and even Gary said, this is going to drop a tornado. He said, it's going to drop a tornado. And sure enough, all of a sudden it just wound up, and we didn't know it was on the ground. And my cameraman, Rich Kriegel, he said, I think it's on the ground, but when it passed over the western edge of the lake, we saw the water turning. And then it picked that water up, and then it went right a mile north, and it just followed the shoreline a mile north. And there was a lot of damage over there. Now, this is damage that it caused after it got on the east side of Shawnee Lake, and it just absolutely just devastated that mobile home. And there's even the southwest of there before it crossed over the entire Shawnee Lake. It's just devastated on the other side. So, you know, it just turned into a really violent tornado. At one time, it looked like an upside-down wedding cake as it tiered itself down. So it was just incredible, you know.
And you were putting out the warning, but I mean, when you pulled up on something like this, I mean, it's almost impossible to describe what you're seeing.
Yeah, you know, and like I told you in the live report on the air, you know, the first thing I think about is the kids. Sure. Because, you know, the parents bring them out and all of a sudden everything they've owned or played with is gone. They're just looking at total destruction. How do you explain that to a 4 or 5 year old? Well, what happened? You know, and so I always think about the kids first, and then, you know, and sometimes it gets kind of hard to talk sometimes because, you know, I just hate seeing anybody get hurt.
This is Stillman Estates mobile home park out by Shawnee Lake, where we did have one fatality and 2 people at last check unaccounted for that they're trying to find.
Right, and I really thought more. You look at this devastation. You think there's just hundreds of people gone. You know, anybody could live through that. You know, and even up at Kearney, when we went up there and showed some of the damage. You know, and this gentleman here driving the semi, I haven't heard word on him yet, you know, whether he's okay or not.
I think did we have 6 injuries out there at the intersection, or 4 injuries out there,
and one was serious.
And I think we think it was probably him.
Right, and I mean, it just tossed that thing right off the overpass like nothing as it passed through there. So, you know, it was a very devastating tornado. You know, at one time I thought, man, this can't be another May 3rd, please. You know, and I mean, it was powerful,
had that kind of look to it.
But it had that kind of look to it.
Well, Jim, you did a great job today showing us the tornado, giving enough warning for people watching, and also giving us a look afterwards. We do appreciate it as well.
Yes, up Sky News 9. You might be on it again tomorrow.
We may be there tomorrow.
Hopefully it won't be anything like that. All right, Jim, we appreciate it. So more to come. Stick around.
come in and talk about your video. Val, I'm going to step out of the way and let's talk about this huge tornado that you had up near Luther. Can you talk about that?
Oh, yeah, Jed, that's exactly right. This is the Kearney tornado, and we watched it from its inception about 3 miles north of Luther. And what you're looking at now is just a little bit further to the northeast from Luther, northeast of Luther, and probably up more towards north of Wellston as it's moving across the countryside there. You know, Jed, this is a big tornado, and when this thing started north of Luther, we could tell right away that it was going to grow to be a huge tornado. We were able to drive probably up within, I'm going to say, 200 yards right behind this thing. Violent rotation. You know, Jed, I mean, you've been doing this for a long time, and I know I've been chasing for a long time, and, you know, when you look at that tornado right there, with a violent rotation that it has, I mean, we were saying that it was at least F3 and probably F4 strength, trying to warn people, man, just to stay out of the way of it. But anyway, we followed that thing on up towards the south end of Kearney there, but that's the one that did all the damage up there, Jed.
Yeah, Val, so for people that are listening at home, how did you know? What was it that told you this was going to be a big tornado? When it was developing, what were you seeing that made you say that?
Well, you know, we saw the Edmund tornado, and it was a smaller, weaker one, went right through Edmund, and that one dissipated, and then a new, bigger wall cloud formed up to the northeast. And we saw the rotation underneath it, but when we're looking at that thing and we see the rotation and a funnel comes out below, we see kind of a broader, maybe a half a mile to a 1 mile around rotation up in the wall cloud with like a little lip hanging down, if you will, just like, you know, maybe the edge of a jar hanging down, and all of that strong rotation, you know, just really rotating around that funnel. And you know, at that point, you're going to start to see multiple vortices come down, and that's what happened. That thing started producing multiple vortices, and you know, it just got bigger and stronger and started kicking up debris. And I tell you what, it grew. Oh, you can see how big it is.
Huge. 7. So you know, you can see above the tornado itself, everything looks like it's spinning up above it. So that you could just tell just by looking at that, as this tornado was going to come down, knowing everything above it was spinning, it was going to get pretty big.
Oh yeah, and I mean, it's hard to really describe. You know, you have to have seen a lot of them before. But when you're looking at the wall cloud up, and you might have a small tornado come down initially right in the middle, but just surrounding that, okay, you have what I call like a lip that's hanging down that's going all the way around that thing, and that was rotating violently. And when you see that, you know it's going to get bigger.
Well, Val, you did a great job yesterday. Let's go to the graphic. I want you to talk about today. Give us your take on what you're expecting today. We've got our severe weather threat level map up, and we've got it, you know, high voltage east of that cold front and dry line. What's your take on the storm stand? How do you see this day enveloping or coming to play?
Jed, I've been looking at some of the data coming out right now, and it suggests storms going up early today, sometime around noon or so, right across the metro area. It looks like we're going to have storms form right over the metro, kind of up I-44, and then move off to the east, and other storms tend to form right behind it over Oklahoma City. So I'm going to say that Oklahoma City is going to be under the gun again, and points east of Oklahoma City especially, Jed.
Val, you know, tornadoes and severe weather really aren't typical for noon to 1 o'clock. I mean, what's your thought on tornadoes happening near the inception of this and Oklahoma City being involved at that time as well?
Well, you know, typically you're right. Storms don't usually get going this early in the day. When storms, you know, do get going early in the day, I've seen this before a couple different times. I know years and years ago, probably in the 70s, I want to say, there was an outbreak. I believe it was 1974. Oklahoma City had a tornado around 12:15 or 12:30 that day, and then the supercell went on to just annihilate parts of Tulsa.
That was June 8th, 1974, my friend.
Okay, that's exactly, you're right. That's when
Edmund
it was.
over to near Luther. One of the people on that tornado was our very own David Payne. David's on with me right now. Good morning to you, David. You've had a chance to recover from yesterday.
Oh, yeah. You know, this time of year, you really don't recover. You just keep going. You know what I mean? You just reload and do it the next day, man.
Okay, well, let's go through your video here. This was when you were right near I-35 and 15th Street. Kind of walk us through what you were thinking, and as this tornado was going across that area.
Yeah, that was obviously the first storm of the day that developed over Yukon and moved east-northeast. So, we just kept tracking it, and coming down 15th Street in Edmond, it went right over the Home Depot on Broadway Extension there, and I really thought it was going to try to put something down a little bit farther back to the west, and then it didn't. But, man, as it got towards Bryant and 15th Street, just south of Bryant, is when we started to see debris in the air, and the cone, the tornado started, coming closer to the ground. And then it just became stronger and stronger as it approached I-35. And then headed down 15th Street, I just simply stopped, and I could see the tornado coming at me. I could see obviously the debris in the air. And then at 15th Street, I turned my truck southwest, had all my lights flashing, just trying to warn people, because there were people driving around that, I don't think really were realizing what was going on. And things happen so fast in that type of environment. But I turned my truck to the southwest, faced the tornado as it comes out of the trees by that new Medical Mercy complex they're building there. And it really strengthened right there. That's one of the stronger points of the tornado. It's going to be just southwest of that intersection, and then just goes right in front of us, crosses the on-ramp, crosses I-35, and then barely misses Henderson Hills Baptist Church, stays south of OCS, the school, stays south of Life Church, and then it just keeps going towards Arcadia Lake and towards the small city of Arcadia. And, of course, we all know about Pops out in Arcadia. Jed, what was weird, when the tornado was still near the lake, I had another tornado, satellite tornado, form on 2nd Street right in front of me. I actually drove into it, and it did some weak damage up on 2nd Street, which really wasn't with that tornado. It was another area of spin. And then headed down towards Arcadia, then had a couple small tornadoes come off what we call Sugar Hill, which is right there at Post Road. And then had another spin up there at the northeast corner of Post and Highway 66. And it was just crazy, It's just a total wave of chaos going on in and around a tornado when you have all that going on with traffic and the tornadoes. And it did weaken at that point. It did cycle. It missed Pops. It actually went just south of Pops. And then the second time that it really, really cycled, a classic supercell, when it cycled the second time, when it was north of Luther, is when it really, really went into overdrive mode, where it turned into the half-mile, quarter to half-mile wedge that eventually went up and hit Kearney. But, wow, it was amazing, the difference between how the storm looked when it was north of Luther and how it looked when it was coming through Edmond. Really two different storms. I mean, same storm, but it looked completely different. And when it was near Luther, we were, me and Val were both thinking, oh my gosh, this is going to be a big, big tornado now. The wall cloud just was so much bigger, was so much meaner looking. And then it went on and slammed Kearney. I was on the south side when it was going into Kearney, and obviously Alan Brosey did an incredible job on the north side coming in from the north. Yeah. Hey, Alan did, and his video, he saw all that.
David, I want to ask you a couple questions. Hey, I want to ask you a couple questions. Watching this video, this tornado, how close were you to that, and was there a fear that might turn towards you at all?
Oh, not really. I was probably a couple hundred yards, I think, from the bridge down to the, and I just drove back to that area, look at tree damage, so, it's probably 200 yards. Okay. And I knew it was coming out of the trees. I knew it was coming through that, the additions, behind, that area, and I knew it was coming at me. But, not really. I don't think you really have time to think, is this going to make a hard left turn? And at that point, I knew that it wasn't a super strong tornado, right. And I thought, well, even if it did hit me, I think I would be okay at this point, because I could see the cone hanging down. It just wasn't very wide. Yeah. But it was intense. And we all know what it did after it left Edmond. It just went crazy.
Have you figured out, you see as this video happens, there's like some kind of streamer that goes up in the air, and it got really wide. It was just kind of a streamer up in the air. Do you know what that was?
Well, there was actually 2 or 3 of those. We went back and looked at all the video last night. There's actually a couple of those. One was really, really big. That Mercy doctor's office building that Mercy's putting in, that's 99% completed until yesterday. That thing, there's a lot of, I think, stuff still in the parking lot, because they're just recently finishing it up, and I think it came off, whatever, that was some wrap, around some packages or something. I don't know, but it came out of that. It came out of that parking lot. I remember seeing that being lifted up and coming out where the building's going. And I just drove by there, and there's windows blown out, trees blown down. It's a mess.
Hey,